very special lady who has been crushing it and doing great things. I'm not sure if I was just live. I wasn't even live the first few seconds. What's up, everybody? It's Tommy Runs. This is the Run Eat Sleep Show, episode number 77. Today we have Emma Bates on the show. Emma is a professional long distance runner. She runs for ASICS Running, and then also she happens to be sponsored by UCAN, who is also the sponsor of this episode. If you have not tried UCAN, you really need to, and you can if you just go to their website, ucan.co. And they have all the nutrition stuff. They have fuel on the go, which is called Edge. They have protein, energy, and all. It's really a one-stop shop. So please check out UCAN because they are just doing really great things in the running space, and the nutrition is on point. And then Emma is also sponsored by Koros Global, who makes wonderful watches, and I have one myself. I have the Pace 2, so please check that out as well. Emma has done really great things in the running game. She had a really great 2019 to 2021. Obviously, things were kind of weird because of COVID and all that stuff, but we are really looking forward to seeing what happens with her in 2022. And I have her on the show today. Thank you so much, Emma, for being here, and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's exciting. 77 episodes, killing it.
Yeah, I mean, really, so the goal, just do as many as you can, like within like a short period of time. And then so like you hear that number, it's like, oh, 77, So yeah, no, the show started in the pandemic because like we all had nothing to do. So I'm like, why not start a podcast?
Absolutely.
Why
No,
not?
you're
Right?
doing great. And again, look at all your shoes. So it's
Yeah.
it's definitely getting a lot of
Yeah.
attention. And
If,
I'm excited that we're both using like the same products,
yeah.
Koros and UCAN and ASICS, of course. So
Yeah.
yeah, some good companies out there for sure.
Yeah, I saw that and I'm like, okay, I like her. I like her already. And I had the opportunity to meet you at the UCAN panel in Boston. I know you didn't run in Boston, but like, how was that experience for you kind of being there kind of from a spectator standpoint?
Yeah, I lived in Boston for a few years from 2015 to 2018. So I had gone to the Boston Marathon a couple times, but being there as like an athlete that hadn't run marathons yet, it
Right,
wasn't as special. So to be
right.
there, having done 5 marathons now, and to just like kind of soak in everything, and like I think because Boston wasn't the same as it was in the fall, just because
Yeah,
it's normally in the spring. So having it be like that full-fledged, like everybody's out, we have all the expo and all the events and everything like that, like people showed out,
yeah,
and that was amazing, just to like get that like energy again. And like I haven't really been at a race. Like I went to New York as well as a spectator, and there was a little bit more of that, but like Boston, I think everybody just like really rallied behind it, and like
yeah.
just everybody that qualified for Boston was able to get in this year. So
Mhm.
it was packed. So it was a very, very exciting time. And it was so cool to see you running out there and doing
Yeah.
the thing. And it makes me just so inspired to get out there and hopefully do that in the next spring.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think you saw me. I think when you saw me, I was at a different point in life right then. I
Last
mean,
19 is pretty rough for everybody. Yeah.
yeah, well, I had this knee thing going on too. So like by the time I saw you, it was just like I'm just trying to make it to the end. And looking over and hearing you you yelled my name, and I looked over because like it's not when you go to a place like that, it's not that many people that are gonna know you unless you're like you. So like when I went past you, you yelled my name, and I'm like, oh wow, hey Emma, how are you? And so like, that definitely helps. And I didn't really think about that though. Like this is probably 2021 or 2022, Boston was probably the second most grateful,
Mhm.
marathon participant list, that there's been because there was no cutoff, so everybody that qualified and applied got in. And then obviously second to 2014, the year after the bombings. But it just felt like everybody there was just like so stoked to be there, ready to go, and then just went out, and the environment was just so crazy. Just that whole weekend, even not even just the day of. It was Boston was the Boston Marathon for 4 days, pretty much.
Seriously, it was exhausting, and I didn't even race.
Yeah, I know, I know.
Fun.
I thought that was funny though. I was on a panel with 3 professional, athletes, and I was the only one on the panel running the marathon in the
Yeah.
company, you know? Um,
Like, I'm so sorry you have to like go through all of this. Like
yeah,
it's, I mean, you had all those like shakeout runs and everything too. So
yeah,
just like
yeah.
that takes a lot out of you, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think next time I go back, I'll probably have less to do before the before the dance, So, I just gotta figure out that balance, and then we should be good to go.
Mhm. Do all that stuff after.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
can.
yeah, 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 if you can, for sure, or maybe one thing, maybe not
Yeah,
4.
exactly.
That's a lot.
You gotta pick.
Um, but, thanks for being on the show here, and I kinda wanted to always go back to, like, the origin story a little bit because, it's often a little different than what, like, some people's introduction to running, like, I just started running a few years back, but I'd love to hear, like, how running became a thing for you and, like, when was it introduced to your into your life?
I loved running ever since I was a little kid. Like, I was a very hyperactive child, and
Mhm,
my parents needed to put me in sports and activities that would, like, try to, you know, get me to settle down a bit or just try to wear me out.
yep,
And nothing was really working. I did track and field, and that still wasn't enough. So my parents were like, "Hey, what do you feel about, like, cross country?" Because they know, like, my mom did cross country in high school for a couple years, and
right,
so she knew like just how much it would take out of you. So I was like, oh, I don't really know. And she's like, well, if you don't like it on the first day, like that's fine. You can go back to, sprints and everything like that and hurdles. But the first day of practice, I just completely fell in love with
really,
just everybody. Like it was more like the community. Like everybody was just like so excited to like challenge themselves.
mm, mm,
And I had never really been around that before. Like I had been in other sports, but team sports, and there's always like people that really care and people that don't care. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. And it was so cool to like just rely on yourself and to be
mhm,
able to go out every single day and just like see how far you could go. I could barely go 10 minutes that first day of practice. Like
mhm,
that was the hardest thing I had ever done. But then, the next week I was able to do 20 minutes straight and the week after that 30 minutes straight. And it was just
mm,
like so fun to just like see what you could accomplish, things that you never thought were possible. And so once I, got into the sport, I started running really well and was able to garner a scholarship to college, which
mhm,
I wanted to always go to college, but I didn't know if I was gonna be able to afford it. So being, a successful runner in high school allowed me to have an education, and I'm so grateful for that because I got, a 75% scholarship to the university, in Boise State, Boise
mhm,
State
yep,
University. So, was able to just kinda challenge myself more and more there. I was not really planning on doing too much running. I was gonna focus on school a little bit more, but the more I ran, the better I started to become, and the more integrated into the sport I became, and a fan of the sport I became as
right.
well. And so that just spurred it along. And then I ended up winning nationals in the 10,000 meters in 2014. And then that was what got me into professional running. And so it just kind of like evolved from there. I never really planned on doing it as a professional or making money off of it, but it just kind of happened.
And I've heard you say before that, because when you first got into the sport around 7th grade, you took to it really quickly and saw some early success. I think you're like on varsity or something like that as a 7th or 8th grader or whatever, which is pretty crazy. But then also, like, I'm just kind of thinking, you mentioned between that point to about 12th grade, you didn't feel like you had a ton of improvement. But I mean, obviously there was some there, but you probably just kind of like judging against like other people
Mhm.
on the teams or maybe the other teams that you were playing against or running against. So talk to me about like that moment. I know you were young, so it's always, it's not like you were looking back. What are some of the lessons and how did you deal with that slow, gradual improvement? Because I know a lot of us we want like that, like each training block needs to be better than the last.
Mhm. Mhm.
How did you handle that, and how could we place that in, like, today's lifestyle of our running?
Yeah, from like 7th to ninth grade, I was able to improve, but after that, it was just kind of stagnant and I
Mm,
wasn't really, I was working harder, but I wasn't really getting any better.
mhm,
But I was having so much fun with just like everybody around me and knowing that like, I mean, success it takes time, like I think I knew at a pretty early age because of running that like just because you put in the hard work doesn't mean it's going to,
right,
happen right away. And so that made me learn how to be patient and learn how to just kind of put your head down and get to work and, hope that it'll come around eventually. But I think it was like my dad that told me, like, you just, he brought me up to be like somebody that was very tough and like kind of like gritty. And that
Yeah.
was like probably the best like lesson, was like when I would like, go and scrape my knee and he's like, "Oh, are you bleeding?" I'm like, "Well, no." Like, "Well, you're fine." Just kind of like keep going on with life. It's like, there's certain things that you um strive for, these big goals in your life, and keeping those in focus is like the most important thing, and just knowing that it's still there, but like enjoying the process. So kind of taking things step by step is like the way that I've always approached everything in life, but running has taught me that. And like just kind of focus on, today's run, tomorrow's run, just like go one step at a time. And
Right, right.
mindfulness has been everything for me. And like I've had to relearn how to be mindful, but like looking back in high school, I was doing that. I was enjoying every single
That's
practice that I
cool.
went to and every single run that I would do with other people. And just kind of soaking in all of like the things that make me happy,
Mhm.
and just kind of, yeah, just go from a place of just end results, rather than focusing on the end result,
Yeah,
just focusing on certain things that you can tackle each day, like kind
yeah,
of like putting like a check mark on each thing. So like, you have a 10-mile run today, we'll just like check that off, like you did
yeah.
it. And that's success and in that moment, and accomplishment in that moment. And that just gives you so much more like self-confidence and self-worth, just like knowing that you accomplished something that day.
No, I mean, I find that's amazing. I mean, and I find that really impressive though at that age, that we're because especially competitively, I would imagine that there's all this pressure to perform, and especially since you had like early success at it, that it just feels like, how can I get better, or why am I not getting better? It's impressive that you took a step back and said, okay, well, let's just enjoy like what this is right now.
Mhm.
And how did that, like, after, you got to 12th grade and, went to Boise on a 75% scholarship, how did that mentality of like living in the moment, or, one day, 1 mile at a time, how did that translate to the success that you saw in college?
It didn't. I lost sight of mindfulness and having fun, and I definitely was not balanced at all when I was in college. And I ended up, winning a national title, but I don't think I don't regret what the way that I went about it, but I definitely didn't enjoy myself as much as I should have. And, I definitely made a lot of sacrifices that I thought were necessary in
Yeah,
order to be successful. But there were so many things that I kind of put on the wayside, and, friendships and relationships and like all these other things that like I'm kind of sad looking back on, because I got to a point of like, you know, accomplishing certain goals, but like
mhm,
other things kind of, went by the wayside. And that's that was fine at the time, but, like, I have learned so much more from it now. Like, I was putting so much pressure on myself for winning that national title, and so I thought I had to, keep winning national titles and keep performing at that level,
yeah.
and it just, like, it was all consuming, and so I just completely lost sight of, like, why I even started this in the first place. And, trying to get back to, high school Emma was just, like, I didn't know how to go back to that, and how to go back to, like, the roots of like, exactly why I do this. And that's the biggest thing, is your why. And I didn't have that anymore.
So you took like a hard left, and I mean, you rightfully so though too. I mean, now you're in, collegiate sports, and you have a 75% scholarship. So like you feel like you're on the hook to do better. And we've all been there in some area of our life where we just feel like all the chips, I gotta go all in on this, and I can't be the silly fun, Emma as before. um, how did you get back to that though? I mean, because like you said, it's like you couldn't, like, who is that person that I used to be, and how can I get back there? But I feel like it's really hard to just in day to day to like to take a step back in the middle of all of it,
Mhm.
when you got to pay rent and this, and you got to do all this stuff. How did you reattach to that? Because and it doesn't seem like the stakes got any lower from you from that point on. It's not like you backed away from the sport at that point, but how'd you get close to it again?
It took a long time. It took until, I moved back from Boston. So I moved to Boston right after college to join a professional team, and then I was still just in that weird funk of not, enjoying myself and not liking running and feeling like it was a chore and just, like, feeling like it was an uphill battle the whole time. I was seeing, decent success, but I wasn't seeing anything special. So I thought that, like, that was my whole being and all my self-worth was just wrapped up in the sport. So I actually took a step back and ended up moving to Boise, Idaho, and living off grid and completely detaching myself from, like, just all of the stuff of this world and, like, all the material items, and completely, like, just being on my own and trying to find the love of running again. And so
Mhm.
I just, like, didn't want to compete. I just wanted to go in the mountains and go run and just try to find myself again,
Yeah. Yep.
to find that love of not just the sport, but of myself. And
Mhm.
so that was how I was able to do it, was just to do a complete 180 of, like, living in a city of Boston around a bunch of people and just, like, completely immerse myself
Yeah,
in
that's
nature and, like, reconnect with, like, just again, like, my roots. Like, I came from, like, a really small town, and, like, that's all we did was just, like, go camping and running and, like, do all these outdoor activities, and, like, getting back to that point just, like, reminded me of, like, the kid in me and, like,
mhm.
how to have fun again. So that was how I did it anyway. That's how I got out of that.
I'm just out of curiosity, like, what did that look like, off grid Emma, like, what was that?
It was, I lived in a house, with my now ex, but, we lived in a house that was, like, 700 square feet. So it wasn't like a tiny house or anything, but it was,
Okay.
up in, like, the mountains of Boise, so, like, 5,000 feet, and there was no electricity. Like, we had solar panels, no running water,
Yeah,
probably, like, a mile away from, like, the next neighbor out there,
yeah.
and, I mean, there's mountain lions, there's wolves, there's elk, there's all these, like, animals out there, and so it's just like, you're just, like, running up, like, these huge mountains and just, like, I mean, you're just surrounded by trees and
Yeah.
beauty, and it was amazing.
How long were you able to kinda be off grid then?
That was 3 years. Yeah.
3 years,
Mhm.
wow. I would be dead. Like,
It teaches you how to really appreciate the little things, like,
yeah,
again, water. Like, running water is, like, such a I mean, a gift, and
yeah,
that's something that, like, I never really realized before, and so living that way is something that I definitely recommend to everybody. It's really hard, but
mhm,
it brought me back to, like, again, like, what we're here for and just,
yeah.
like, yeah, living sustainably.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just trying to think, like, I mean, that sounds really cool, because I've always, kinda wanted to maybe do that, like, for a short period of time, but then, like, I guess, like, a good way to the concept of off grid, I mean, because 'cause we're so attached, like, our phones are everything, laptops and TVs or whatever, but I guess, like, I mean, I've heard people take, like, breaks from their phones because, I mean, that's not going off grid, but just, like, detaching from, like and actually being able to live in the moment because our phones and laptops definitely have us in so many different places where our feet are not,
Mhm.
and the whole concept is really being where your feet are is much easier when you don't have like this device that is sent from God to us to be able to communicate with with everyone around the world at all times. But I think that that's really cool that you were able to do that. And so after the 3 year off grid lifestyle, what happened after that? And with you got back to running, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, it was actually, like, I think less than a year of living up there, and I was working 2 jobs, so I was working, like, 50 to 60-hour weeks, while I was up there, and running just for fun. But then I ended up getting into a race in Doha, Qatar,
Hmm.
and ended up running really well there and qualifying for my first US team for the
Oh,
half marathon championships. So
hmm.
that was very unexpected, and just, like, a complete joy. Like, that I was able to just, like, kind of do my thing and have fun again and still be, successful and be more successful than I was before. And so that kind of got me back into it, was like, hey, I can still do
Yeah,
this and have some balance in my life and still kind of, like, be a normal person, because I
yeah,
really enjoyed working. I really enjoyed just, like, being around, just, like, being in a, like, being a professional runner is just really isolating, and so just
Yeah.
you feel very strange, like, you feel like you're not, like, a real human being, so
Yeah.
just kind of being immersed in, like, real society of, like, working and, like, running at the same time was something that was really cool and taught me how to, like, work hard again, and it made me appreciate everybody around me, like, everybody has so much going on, and the fact that people have kids and are running, people that have 9 to 5 jobs that are running, it's just like, I have so much more respect now and appreciation for all of those people. And so I just really, yeah, just really folded into just like that kind of atmosphere and just really was happy because of it, just
Mhm.
because of that balance, and was able to just like find myself back into the sport of running and ended up getting a sponsorship with ASICS after it. And
Yeah.
so I ran my first marathon and it went really, really well. And that's why I'm here today. I just moved into Boulder about a year ago and
Yeah.
joined a team here and have kind of taken day by day and figured out like what my journey will be
Mhm.
just from one day to the next.
So yeah, so like I guess we skipped over like the BAA times for you, but that's fine with me. Because I know going to Team Boss was a big deal, and I like this. I'd like for you to share that story. I've heard it before about like how you got there and and kind of what made you go that direction to Team Boss. But how did that happen? Who did you reach out to? How'd the conversation go, and how's that been working for you so far?
Yeah, so I wasn't anticipating leaving Boise, but I ended up getting a divorce. And so that was like not messy, but I just couldn't be in Boise anymore.
Mhm.
So I knew that I needed to be somewhere else. And I had ran into Laura Thweet. She's another marathon runner. And we just like hit it off like the first time we met, and like we met again. And I was just like, you were just such a fun person and I would love to train with you. And she happened to be on Team Boss. And
Mhm.
so I ended up calling her coach, Joe Bossard, and being like, hey, do you want to add any more athletes? Do you want another marathon runner? I anticipated him to say no, just because they are a very track specific team, where
Okay.
they were before. And so,
Mhm.
Laura was the only other marathoner. And so I wasn't sure if they'd accept me, but they ended up being super excited about it. And so I moved to Boulder, not getting an answer yet from them,
Okay. All right.
because they all had to decide collectively as like a team. All the women on the team had to decide if they
That's
wanted
good
me
though.
because they don't care how good you are. They care
Yeah.
about like if it meshes, if like your personality meshes with theirs. And so I just moved to Boulder. I just up and left and was like, well, hopefully I find something here and find a team that will work. And they ended up accepting me right away, right as I moved here. So I was really, really pleased with that.
That's actually, I mean, I wonder, was that like actually comforting to know that you couldn't just get on the team right away? Like, did that mean a lot to hear them say, well, we know you're fast, but we have to make sure it works for us.
It definitely does, because I know that they care about just like the core of the team. I mean, that's what makes a team, is people that, get along, and you have to enjoy going to practice. And if, you don't enjoy the people that you're running with, there's no point in it being a team at all. So like the fact that we are able to like all be sponsored by different companies and then come together and just like collectively just like really enjoy each other's company, but just get like our job done on the day. It's just like it's so special, and like I'm so lucky, and I know going forward that like we're gonna only accept people that like we know are gonna fit on this team. And like
Yeah.
we've been super lucky with everybody that has wanted to join the team, has been wonderful. So I'm very, very happy that like it's done that way. Yeah.
And what year was that for you when you moved to
That
Boulder?
was just a little over a year ago, so April of last year.
Nice, nice. And so if we go back before that, because the big, the big marathon was before this as well. But I've heard you mention that you before Boston, before Chicago to 2019, you had gone through some things that were a little tougher in life and figured out a way through it and managed to still stick with like what you love doing, which is running, and doing it at a high level. And with us, a lot of us watching or whatever listening, we work full time and we have family, kids, blah blah blah, all these other things, just like you do as well. You have all these other things that matter to you. But then we have this thing called running that we really gravitate towards, that helps us for so many different reasons. It's transformational. It's It's like a way of meditation in a bit in certain points of our lives. How did you work through some of those down moments of life to get to the point where even training for a successful marathon was a possibility for you?
Yeah, I kind of like ebb and flow with like the way that I try to balance myself. And so that may be like being more social and like kind of folding more into like the relationships with everybody around me. Or there are certain times where I need to like, be more retrospective and like kind of focus on like certain things that maybe are more internalized. And so like I mean, either that's like, reading books on psychology. That's what I am just really interested in. And that's what kind of drives me, and like, especially sports and performance psychology. But also just like therapy, like going to therapy and just like talking through things. And that doesn't necessarily need to be like with a therapist either. I think, I have a lot of friends that I can kind of go to like talk about certain things, or like my family that I can talk to about certain things as well. And that has helped immensely in just like kind
Yeah,
of working through things that like are beyond running, because I mean, running is a big part of my life, but it's not all of me. And
yeah,
so I know that there are other facets that I need to address. And that's like, certain, hobbies or like career oriented things that I like want to focus on that make me feel like fulfilled. And so, yeah, it just kind of depends on like the time of year and like what I'm kind of feeling. But when it comes to people that like are working all the time, like when I was working full time, 50,
mhm,
60-hour weeks, I was less like, running was just like my outlet. That was a place
yeah,
where I went again to meditate. That was a space where I just like, all my stress was relieved. That was where I sorted through all my thoughts and like was
mhm,
able to like kind of put things in order. And so I feel like people really underestimate like that can be your meditation. You don't need to like take time out of your day to meditate and go run or do this and that. It's like that's where you can just completely immerse yourself into like who
mhm,
you are and like what you need to do. And like that's what is so great about running, is like it just does so many things for so many people in so many different ways.
yeah,
And I love running with people, but I have to have certain days where I just run on my own and am able to just kind of like take everything in and just like let the thoughts flood into me and like completely like again just sort through them, because I have so much going on in here all the time. And so that's like again just like my quiet time. And I'm really bad at sitting still, so that's like why I do it when I run,
yeah,
because again it's just like I think my best thoughts when I run, I would
yeah,
say. So it's fun, just to kind of like not experiment, to explore your inner being when you're
yeah.
out there on your own, yeah, for so
I
long
yeah,
especially.
I actually had the thought to have to do the show, period, was on a long run. Like I was at like 12 miles. It was a workout long run, and I'm like, "Oh, the Run Eat Sleep show."
Yeah,
And I'm like, "All right, man, and I thought like maybe I should stop and write this down, but I didn't have a phone. But I'm like, well, you're just gonna have to try to remember it. But it worked out.
seriously.
But like so because I know that you're working 50, 60 hours, but you still have this background of competitive running. And so I know that like even though there's a meditation, there's a lot of meditation involved in that for you, and you use running as your outlet. How did you how did you balance and throw in like your competitive nature and wanting to do well, like, because that's part of the problem for me is like I want to do well. She got you good there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but so like I guess my thing is, I have all this other stuff going on, but I want to do well in running. Like I want to get better. I want to get faster. And then you go through all these days and months where you don't pay attention really. You're just getting the workout done. You're just getting the long run in. You're on to the next one. How do you manage both of those to be mindful and take that time to really kind of go inward, but then also chase goals? Like, how do you balance those two things?
I think it's just really knowing yourself. Like I said, like I go through different bouts of like when I am more focused and when I'm more like just kind of going through the motions, which I don't think it's a bad thing when you're going through the motions. Like there are
Mhm.
certain times where I'm just like in a flow state almost of like running is like super easy and I don't have to think about it. And like, then I can focus on other things in my life. So it's typically when running's going well that I don't have to think about running, which is, you know, kind of a difficult thing because it's not always going to go well. So just trying to, again, I mean, there has to be other things in your life that you are goal oriented
Mhm.
towards. So whether that be like your career or like being a good parent, whatever that may be, because running like can be, again, all consuming. And like a lot of times we put a lot of self-worth into our performance when it comes to running. And that's unhealthy. Like it just can't, like your body is you're pushing your body to the limit a lot of times. And like
Yeah.
your body's going to decide sometimes whether or not it's going to be there for you on that day. And so
Yeah.
mentally, like you can try to push through things, but the more you force things, I've learned, the harder things are. So I think it's just kind of letting like your body do what it needs to do. If you need to take a day off, like if you feel just like totally worn out, I think you should
Yeah.
take a day off and like take like, I mean, like a mental day, you know, like that's training as well. And I think people underestimate that, like training isn't always like going
Mm.
hard, like going
Right.
100%, you know, like recovery days are also, you know, training, or recovery, you know, after a marathon, like taking 2 weeks or a month off, that's training, you know.
Mhm.
So there's always times where we can like be bettering ourselves, and knowing yourself well enough to be like, this is, I need to take a step back and I need to reassess, like, this is not what I need right now because running is like stressing me out.
Mhm. Yeah.
And this can't, like, you should always be enjoying it. Like that's the only way to get better, is to always enjoy the process. And like if it's causing you to be, you know, if to feel like a chore, that's never a good sign. So maybe you need to focus on something else in your life for a little while, and like running may need to go by the wayside for a little bit. So
Yeah.
certain priorities in your life to keep that balance. And it's always going to be different. It's always going to ebb and flow between one thing to the next. But I think that's healthy. And I think that's the only way to be sustainable in anything, especially running though.
And so where did this mindfulness, like this mindful approach to life come from? I mean, because you don't. I mean, you could listen. You listen to many interviews with different people from all backgrounds. Mindfulness doesn't always just jump out. And when I hear any of your interviews, I just feel like that's the undertone of all of them
Mhm.
is just being mindful. And you seem like you have like a serious attitude of gratitude, you know. And I just want to know, like, where did that come from, and like, how do you feel like that's played a role in like your racing?
Serious attitude of gratitude. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I have learned it through many, many years of experience. It has taken me a long time to get to the grasp, like get grasp of the actual like meaning of mindfulness. Like it had always been there, but I didn't actually like think about it
Mm.
consciously. And so once I started to think about it consciously, like I was able to apply it to like everyday things too.
Right, right, right,
So, like going to the grocery store, for instance, like that used to feel like such a chore, you know,
right.
like, but once you start to like break it down into steps of like, and like really focus on where you are, and like, you know, pick up like a piece of fruit and like really just like, how does it feel in your hand, you know, like kind of just like really slowing your mind down into like that certain instance. And that's kind of what I've applied to running, is like, how does this footstep feel on my like foot, and like how does it feel going through my body, like focusing on each step one at a time has like really just brought me into this like newfound appreciation of like running and just like what my body can do during
Mhm,
it.
mhm.
And I've been able to kind of withstand more pain than I ever have, because I approach pain in a different way. Like I kind of I welcome it. And
Yeah,
so that's what I've learned through mindfulness, is how to like welcome this pain. You know it's going to happen in
right.
any race or any workout. Like just like kind of lean into it and do a dance with it, and really just like that's kind of how I've always approached like trying to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mhm.
But through mindfulness, I've learned how to like completely like not ignore it, but just like really hone in on it, and like this is really painful right now, but it's not going to be forever. And so that's really what has gotten me to a point in running where I've just like completely like changed my outlook of, this is really hard, but like I want to do this, and I know this is going to happen. I know this is what I'm going to go through.
No, I think that that's really, I mean, because I think that ties into, like just the concept of, being in the grocery store and, really like just like being there and not necessarily just grabbing stuff thrown in the cart, but really experiencing each moment throughout the day and like the process of it, like you said, like getting in the car, like being in the car. And it sounds like hokey just to think like that and like hold the piece of fruit in your hand and really, but it's it's like one of those things where like in marathoning or in running, there's a certain point where even if you're thinking about everything else and not being in the moment, there's going to be this one moment where the marathon or this distance reminds you exactly where you are, you know? And if you're not used to, the more you're used to being present and really being in your thoughts and feelings and being in this moment, whether it's a pleasant one or a bad one, then then like in the marathon, when it comes like crazy and all of a sudden it's like, we're here in Pain Cave, you're already aware of like where you were headed and you're very in tune with like all these different feelings. So I think that that's really just the way you went from the grocery store to that to the running thing kind of tied it together for me, and I really appreciate that. And I think like with mental health journeys, and I've had my own little journey, and for me it was I stopped drinking in 2017, and for me, like all these moments in life that I had where I had things happen, or I had down moments in life, or lost a loved one or something like that. It was all I never actually felt it. Like I felt it, obviously, but I was always numb to it in some way, and I think that outside of like substances, we get numb to like our experiences based on like the way life works for us now. We have the phone that can, no matter how sad you are, you can go watch a funny video like very quickly. Like it's easy. YouTube, it's right there, or TikTok, whatever. But I just appreciate like the way you go about it, because I could see how that would help out when it comes to really pushing yourself further.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in the runs, when you're running and you decide like, hey, I'm not gonna listen to music today and I'm gonna go by myself, because running with people is important. But I like that you said like I have to run by myself every now and then, because you have to have those moments where you are thinking and feeling.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think going through certain big changes in life um, kind of force you to appreciate the little things
Yeah.
a little bit more, like losing a loved one. It's just, you try to like suppress those feelings for so long, but the more you kind of lean into those feelings, the better you feel too. It's very cathartic to just kind
Yeah.
of like, really just feel what you're feeling at that moment and just like be completely honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, a lot of us have lost touch of, is just like trying to be tough for everybody around you too. It's like, no, vulnerability is really important. And I think, knowing that other people are vulnerable allows you to become more vulnerable. And then you're just feeling what you need to feel at that time, and you can move on, and
Yeah.
I think that's something that we can, yeah, just like put our down our phones for. Like living off grid really taught me like, yeah, like material
Yeah.
things, and like
Yeah.
communication is important, but
Yeah.
only when it's, benefiting your life. If it's taking away from it, if it's stressing you out, like you got to put the phone down. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's great, and I like the vulnerability part. I mean, because so often that we think like strength means that you have this stoic exterior, and you don't share, because why would you share something that was like a sad moment or something that you're struggling with? And I think that that's real strength, is to be who you are in every moment, and then sharing within reason. We don't need to overshare, but sharing within reason that could possibly help someone else in whatever moment they're in. And that's like part of my journey, is to share as much as possible the things that I've gone through and going through, as long as I feel like it's something that someone can take away from the lesson that I'm learning or have learned. So I appreciate you, in your interviews before and this one, to go to lengths to describe like how you are, where, how you are, what you are at this moment. And this is a run, eat, sleep show, so I think we probably talk about running just a little bit here before we let you go. So you've done a lot of great things in your career. If you go to Wikipedia, there's a list of things that you've done and finishes that are just absolutely amazing. But the one that stands out to maybe it stands out to you as well, but stands out to a lot of us is the Chicago Marathon, second place in 2021. So can you talk to me about that? Someone actually asked a question. I think Calamist said, ask how the buildup was for the Chicago Marathon under Coach Bosshard. So how was that buildup for you?
The buildup was really good in hindsight, but during it, I had no idea like how I was doing. I had never trained at altitude before. I had never trained with this coach before. I didn't know how much he knew about the marathon specifically. And
Yeah,
so it was just going day by day and just like, us both just like putting in what we thought we needed to do, but not really knowing what the end result was going to be. So just kind of trusting in the process of like, I am running well right now, but we're just going to go into the Chicago Marathon and hope for the best. But like, it's a race, and so I want to be in the top 3. We all want to win, so like, don't kind of sell yourself short. Like, I mean, just again, I put in some really really good work, and going into the day before, seeing the heat and everything that was going to happen,
yeah.
like it wasn't going to be a fast day, but I knew that I would be able to kind of hunker down and just compete as well as I could. And to take second was like something that I knew could happen, but for it to actually happen was really, really special. And just like goes to show like trusting in the process was, the right way to go. And that's how I'm going to approach every marathon going forward with Joe, is just like knowing that, we know what we're doing and know how to put in the work.
And really quick, guys, we're gonna do the UCAN giveaway in a couple minutes here, before we let Emma go. But please, if you want to be involved in the giveaway for the UCAN marathon bundle, which has a bunch of stuff in it, please throw your first name and where you're from in the comments, and I will throw your name into like this little quick little thing here, and we'll select the winner. So if you are listening and you want to be a part of the giveaway, name and city, state where you're from. All right. So really quick, I just picking your running people. So this may be a good question. So Fit Mom Com says, can you both talk a little bit about picking your running people? And I'm just starting to run with others, and I'm nervous about matching energies and vibes. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, it has taken me many, many years to find the people that I definitely like match my energy with. And so I think it's just going to different training groups. Like if you live in a town where there's like a bunch of different ones, keep trying them all out, and like let them know that like, you want to go run with them, but you need to do what's best for you, especially pace wise. So some of us get caught up in like running a little bit too fast or a little bit too slow, and that's tricky. So just like kind of trying them all out. And like, I love being in Boulder because there's so many different running groups. So I don't just run with my team. I go and run with other teams too, because I just love like the energy that other people have, and like being able to run with people that, like are a little bit slower, or, just like take it a little bit easier than my team specifically, is really, really fun. And it's a good balance.
Yeah, I think that I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, you just have to try things out too. In most areas there's a bunch of different groups, so just keep trying and see what works for you. And cuz some you may like all the groups, so that's cool. Like you may just pick a lot of times they're on different days of the week, so you can decide which one you want to go to on which day. And that's probably the best way to go, and just be open, have fun. And the good thing about running is, for the most part, we're all in it for around the same reason, it's to run. And then there's some groups that are more like focused on PRs and things like that, and if that's not your vibe, then you just go to a different group that is more about running in community and fellowship and all that. But there's some really good groups out there that are all of the above. So just try it out and see what happens. And so really quickly, a personal question from like the one I just have to ask you, because we've been talking about mindfulness so much. How did mindfulness play a role in you? Literally, like they say, run your own race. In Chicago, you ran your own race to the T, and it worked out very well for you.
Mhm.
How did mindfulness play a role in in that moment, in that day for you? That big buildup, nervousness to perform, but you still held with what you thought you needed to do. How did you go about doing that?
I think the biggest thing was the mantra that Joe had come up with for my training cycle was methodical and patient. And so just like being so intentional in like what you were doing at that moment in time and knowing that it's a very, very long race. I did a lot of long runs where I needed to be patient because you start off too fast and it's going to be a really, really tough day if you go overboard. And so just kind of, being honest with myself at each mile. And I realized very early on that I was not within myself. It was about mile 8 that I realized that I was just pushing a little bit too hard. And
Yeah.
so I only know that because of all the training that I've done. Like I have practiced in practice how to feel during a marathon. And like I know exactly like this is where I should feel at this point and this is where I should feel at the end of the race. And that was something that I just had to remind myself like, yeah, the race is ahead of me and it keeps getting further and further away, but this is where I'm at right now and I have to trust myself and know that like my body will become what it needs to become when it wants to. Like we can't
Right.
force it. And so just like running easy is something that I've also like this is like my mantra for the world championships is how easy can you make it? And it's
Mm,
not easy, but like how easy can it feel in that moment for you? Because the marathon is 26.2 miles and being relaxed is everything.
yeah.
So that is how like you can make it easy. Yeah.
I forgot. Like I just like I feel like I heard that recently. Somebody said, How easy can you make it?" And I'm like, I'm gonna have to go back and do some research on that. But yeah, really quickly, we'll just do this giveaway. And I'll say thank you afterwards. So just I'm doing this like a little random thing over here. Just tell me when to hit stop, and this person will win the bundle.
I'll say stop.
Yeah, you pick stop.
Okay.
It's on you. Be mindful.
All right. All right. And stop.
All right. The winner is Ray from Los Angeles. Ray, Los Angeles, you have won the bundle. Reach out to me at Tommy Runs, Tommy TOMMIE_RUNZ on Instagram, or the Run Eat Sleep Show on Instagram, and I will hook you up and figure out how to get that you can bundle to you. So congratulations, Ray, you have won. So thank you so much for being on the show. Please write a book about mindfulness or something like that, because I will read it, and I'm sure so many other people will. Can't wait to see what's next in your journey. We didn't even get to that part, but I just was really fascinated with just hearing how mindfulness has played such a role in your life, and you displayed it picture perfect in Chicago, and I can't wait to see that happen for you again. Thanks for cheering for me in Boston. I really needed it when I saw you.
Of
So
course.
thank you so much. And everybody, make sure you go follow Emma. I'm sure you already do because you are here for her, not me. So make sure you follow Emma. And thank you, everybody that's listening. Please make sure that you run, eat, sleep, and repeat.
Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace out.